I will never forget the sound of Nadia's laughter as security dragged me across the cold marble floor of that grand ballroom. My husband, Omar, stood there with a glass of champagne in his hand, watching me like I was nothing. The guests, his business partners, his fake friends, pulled out their phones and started recording my humiliation like it was entertainment. He looked me in the eye and said, "You're worthless. Everything here is mine." But that arrogant man had no idea. Every brick of that mansion, every chandelier, even the ground he was standing on, it all belonged to my father, and in exactly 24 hours, his perfect little world was going to come crashing down. My name is Ayesha. 3 years ago, I thought I had found my fairy tale. Today, I'm going to tell you how I lost everything in one cruel night, and how I got it all back, with interest. But more than that, I'm going to tell you about the sweetest revenge I never even had to plan. If you believe in karma, if you believe what goes around comes around, you need to hear every word of this story. So hit that subscribe button right now, because I promise, this is unlike anything you've ever heard. It started like a dream. I was 25, teaching Urdu literature at a government school. I lived in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture and plants I kept forgetting to water. My life was simple, maybe even boring, but it was mine. Then I met Omar at a charity gala. He was tall, confident, wearing a suit that cost more than my yearly salary. He owned a fast-growing software company, drove a matte black luxury car, and when he smiled at me across that crowded room, I felt like the only woman alive. Our love story moved fast, too fast, looking back. 3 months later, he proposed with a diamond so big, I was scared to wear it in public. 6 months after that, we were married in a wedding straight out of a magazine, white orchids everywhere, a 5-tier cake, over 300 guests. My dad came, of course. He's always been my anchor after my mom passed when I was 14. He raised me alone, lived simply, drove an old pickup truck. At the wedding, he wore his best suit, which wasn't very fancy. I overheard Omar's mother whisper, "He looks like the staff." It hurt, but Omar pulled me close and said, "Don't worry about them. We're building our own family now." The mansion took my breath away the first time I saw it. White stone walls, tall pillars, a fountain in the circular driveway. Inside, crystal chandeliers, marble everywhere, rooms I didn't even know what to do with. Omar carried me over the threshold and said, "This is our kingdom. I built everything from nothing, and now you're my queen." I believed him, every single word. The first year felt magical. I quit teaching because Omar said his wife shouldn't have to work. I spent my days decorating, hosting dinner parties, trying to fit into this glittering new world. The staff became my real family. Sarah, the housekeeper, would slip me extra desserts when I looked lonely. Uncle Jan, the old gardener, taught me the names of every rose in the garden. They felt more like home than Omar's family ever did. Then things started changing, slowly at first. Omar worked later and later. When he came home, he barely looked at me. If I asked about his day, he'd snap, "You wouldn't understand the pressure I'm under." He stopped touching me, stopped seeing me. Then came the late-night phone calls he'd take in his study, the faint smell of perfume that wasn't mine. Restaurant receipts for 2 when he said he was working late. I knew something was wrong, but I kept telling myself I was paranoid. Successful men are busy, right? Then Nadia walked into our lives, blonde, sharp, always perfectly dressed. Omar introduced her as his new business consultant. She shook my hand with a grip that felt like a challenge. When Omar wasn't looking, she smiled at me, a cold, knowing smile that made my stomach drop. After that, Nadia was everywhere. Meetings at our house that lasted hours. I'd bring coffee, and she'd barely glance at me, but I'd catch her laughing at his jokes, touching his arm, leaning in too close. Even the staff noticed. Sarah started giving me these sad, pitying looks. One day Uncle Jan pulled me aside in the garden and said, "Miss Ayesha, you deserve better than what's happening here. But what could I do? He was my husband. I had made vows. Finally, I used money I'd saved from before the marriage and hired a private investigator. The photos came in a plain brown envelope. Omar and Nadia at a downtown hotel. Omar holding her hand across a candlelit table. Omar kissing her in his car. My hand shook so badly I dropped the pictures all over the kitchen floor. I sat there surrounded by proof of his betrayal and cried until I couldn't breathe. I wanted to confront him privately, give him a chance to explain, maybe save our marriage. But Omar had his own plan, and it was so much crueler than anything I could have imagined. He told me we were hosting a big dinner party, nothing unusual. We did it all the time. I put on a beautiful emerald dress, did my makeup, prepared to play the perfect wife one last time. When the guests arrived, I noticed there were more than usual. Important clients, neighbors, people I barely knew, and Nadia, of course. Wearing my diamond necklace, the one Omar gave me for our first anniversary. I stared at my jewelry around her neck and felt something inside me break. Dinner was torture. I could barely eat. Omar kept refilling glasses, laughing too loudly, brushing Nadia's shoulder when he thought I wasn't looking. Then, halfway through the main course, he stood up. He tapped his glass with a spoon. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to him. I thought he was going to announce a new deal or make a toast. I had no idea I was about to experience the worst moment of my life. "I have an announcement," Omar said, smiling. Actually smiling. "I want a divorce." The words hit me like a slap. Someone gasped. I waited for him to say it was a joke. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Nadia. She stood up slowly, walked over, and he put his arm around her waist, right there in front of everyone, in front of me. "Omar," I whispered, my voice breaking, "what are you doing?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were ice cold. "I'm done pretending, Ayesha. I'm in love with Nadia. I have been for months. And honestly, you've been a burden from the beginning, living off my money in my house, contributing nothing." The room was dead silent. I felt every stare burning into me. Nadia laughed, that high, cruel laugh. "Oh, sweetie," she said, "did you really think a man like Omar would stay with someone so ordinary? You were just a phase, a charity case." I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't move. "Omar, please, can we talk about this privately?" "There's nothing to talk about." He turned and nodded to someone behind me. 2 security guards appeared beside my chair. My heart started pounding. "Remove her," Omar said calmly. "Now." "No, Omar, you can't." But they were already grabbing my arms, lifting me out of my seat. I heard whispers, nervous laughs, phones recording. Nadia was smiling as they dragged me away. They pulled me through the ballroom, past all those watching faces. Some looked away. Others filmed. One man was actually chuckling. Sarah stood in the doorway, tears running down her face, helpless. Uncle Jan was visible through the window, his old face full of pain. They dragged me upstairs to our bedroom and threw me inside. 15 minutes, one guard said. "Pack your clothes. Everything else stays." My hands shook so badly I could barely open drawers. I grabbed random outfits, stuffed them into a suitcase. I found the photo of my mom on the nightstand and held it tight. Behind me, I could hear Nadia's laughter echoing through the house. When I came down the grand staircase one last time, they were all still there, watching. Omar and Nadia were kissing at the bottom of the stairs, his hands in her hair, putting on a show. When they pulled apart, Nadia looked up at me and smirked. "Thanks for keeping his bed warm, darling." Some guests actually laughed. The guards walked me to the gates. Then I was outside, alone, in the dark. One small suitcase, that's all I had left. The heavy gates closed behind me with a final clang. Inside, music started playing. They were celebrating my destruction. It started raining, of course. I sat on the wet curb and cried, ugly, broken sobs that tore out of me. I had no job, no money of my own, nowhere to go. After 20 minutes in the rain, I called the only person I had left, my dad. He answered on the second ring. "Hello, Beta." I couldn't speak at first, just cried. When I finally told him everything, the announcement, Nadia wearing my necklace, the guards, the phone's recording, I expected him to be furious. Instead, there was a long silence. Then he said something strange. "Come to Ahmed and Partners law firm tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. Dad, I need a place to stay, not a lawyer." "Everything is arranged," he said, and his voice sounded almost amused. "I've booked you the presidential suite at Royal Grand Hotel. A car will pick you up in 10 minutes. Take a hot shower, order room service, sleep, and Ayesha, trust me, everything is going to be okay." The presidential suite? My dad, who lived in the same modest house his whole life, who shopped at discount stores? But I was too broken to argue. The car came. The hotel staff treated me like royalty. The suite was bigger than my old apartment. I showered for an hour, ate food I couldn't taste, and fell asleep wondering what my father was planning. The next morning, I walked into Ahmed and Partners, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country. When the elevator opened on the top floor, my dad was waiting. But he wasn't alone. 3 men in expensive suits stood around him, treating him with deep respect. One silver-haired man said, "Mr. Ahmed, wonderful to see you. Everything is prepared exactly as requested." Ahmed. That was my mother's family name, not my dad's. I looked at him, confused. He gave me a small, sad smile. "Come, Beta, we need to talk." They led us to a huge conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. Files covered the entire table. The senior partner introduced himself, then left us alone. My dad sat down heavily. "Ayesha," he said quietly, "I need to tell you who I really am." And that's when my whole world changed again. My father wasn't just a retired simple man. He was Mr. Rahman Ahmed, owner of Ahmed Properties, a real estate empire worth over $800 million. He owned 62 commercial buildings, hotels, luxury apartments, and the mansion Omar had just thrown me out of. I couldn't speak. My dad, in his old shirts and 20-year-old truck, was a secret billionaire. He showed me deeds, bank statements, everything, all real. "Why did you hide this?" I whispered. His eyes filled with tears. "Because of your mother. 30 years ago I built that mansion for us. It was going to be our dream home. Then she got sick. Cancer. She died before we ever moved in. I couldn't live there without her, so I kept it, rented it out, and moved back to our small old house. The money stopped mattering." He continued. 3 years ago, Omar approached me about renting the mansion. I met him in my usual simple clothes. He treated me like a nobody, barely hid his contempt. But I signed the lease, $18,000 a month. He never knew I was the owner. He told everyone it was his. Lived a complete lie. When you fell in love with him, I investigated, saw the arrogance. I wanted to see if he truly loved you, or just wanted a pretty simple wife to show off. So I stayed quiet. I came to your wedding in my old suit, let his family mock me. I gave him 3 years to prove he was worthy of my daughter. And he failed. Dad opened another folder. And now he's going to learn the price. That mansion? I own it. His office in Ahmed Tower, my building, his backup office in Platinum Plaza, also mine. His leased car? I'm the majority investor in the leasing company. His yacht club membership? I'm on the board. Omar's entire life is built on my empire, and he never knew. The senior partner returned with eviction notices, lease terminations, everything. Dad looked at me and said, "We're going to that mansion right now, and we're taking back what's mine." The drive felt unreal. I sat in Dad's car, which I now realized was a brand-new luxury model hidden away somewhere. 2 police officers and the lawyer followed behind. When we pulled up to the gates, my stomach twisted. This place had been my home and my prison. Nadia answered the door in a silk robe, hair messy, clearly having spent the night. When she saw me, she smirked. "Come to beg?" Dad stepped forward. Something in his eyes made her falter. "I'm here to see Omar." "He's busy, and you're trespassing." The lawyer smiled smoothly. Actually, this is Mr. Rahman Ahmed's property. Here's the deed. You're the one trespassing. Nadia went pale. She tried to slam the door, but the officer blocked it. We heard Omar's annoyed voice. "Nadia, who is it?" He appeared at the top of the stairs in silk pajamas, looking irritated. When he saw us, he laughed. "Old man, what is this? Come to plead for your daughter?" Dad didn't react. He just nodded to the lawyer. The lawyer handed Omar a thick envelope. "Mr. Omar, these are eviction notices. You have 24 hours to vacate." Omar actually laughed. "Evict me from my house? You've lost your mind." "No," Dad said quietly. "You've been renting it from me for 3 years. You're 2 months behind on rent, by the way. Lease terminated, effective immediately." Omar's face changed as he read the papers. The color drained away. His hands started shaking. You're the landlord?" "I'm Rahman Ahmed," Dad said, voice like steel. "Owner of Ahmed Properties. Worth over $800 million. And you, Omar, threw my daughter out of my house like trash, while living off my kindness and pretending to be something you're not." Nadia made a strangled sound. "You told me you owned this place," Omar stammered. "Nadia, wait." But the lawyer continued. "Your office leases, terminated. Your car, repossessed within the hour. Your club membership, revoked." Omar's knees buckled. He grabbed the railing to stay upright. "This will ruin me," he whispered. Dad stepped closer. "You should have thought of that before you humiliated my daughter in front of hundreds of people, before you had her dragged out by guards, before you left her in the rain with nothing." That's when Nadia turned on him. The same woman who laughed as I was thrown out, who kissed him in front of everyone, who wore my necklace like a trophy. She looked at Omar with pure disgust. "You don't even own this house? You lied to me? I thought you were actually rich." She ran upstairs. 5 minutes later, she came down with 4 designer suitcases. She walked past Omar without a glance. At the door, she paused. "Oh, and your main investor called this morning. He's pulling out. Good luck being poor." Then she was gone, just like that. Omar turned to me. He was crying now. He fell to his knees in the same foyer where he'd destroyed me 24 hours earlier. "Ayesha, please, I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Forgive me. We can fix this." I looked down at the man who called me worthless, who made me feel small for years, who threw me away in front of a laughing crowd, and I felt nothing. No anger, no joy, just calm. "You wanted me gone," I said softly. "So I'm letting you go too. You have 24 hours, just like you gave me 15 minutes. Dad put his hand on my shoulder. We walked out together. Behind us, Omar's sobs grew fainter as the gates closed. This time, I was on the right side of them. In the weeks that followed, everything collapsed for Omar. The story leaked to the press. Tech CEO evicted from rented mansion after publicly dumping wife. It went viral. Investors pulled out. Partners abandoned him. His company filed for bankruptcy within a month. Last I heard, he's living in a small apartment and working a regular job. Nadia moved on to her next rich target within days. Sarah and Uncle Jan came to see me crying. They'd always suspected, but needed the jobs. Dad hired them back immediately, with big raises. Sarah hugged me for 10 minutes straight. I moved back into the mansion, but it feels different now, lighter, mine. I went back to teaching, this time at a prestigious school under my own name. I started a foundation called New Beginnings, helping women rebuild after betrayal. Dad visits every Sunday. We have dinner in the Rose Garden. Uncle Jan still tends. 6 months later, the pain is still there sometimes, but it's a dull ache now, not a fresh wound. I learned that real power doesn't need to announce itself, that dignity is worth more than any diamond, that the people who truly love you never ask you to be anyone else. So this is my story. The night I lost everything taught me what I'd had all along, a father who loved me enough to let me learn the hard way, the strength to survive my darkest moment, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing karma never forgets. If this story moved you, hit that like button. If you've ever been underestimated, ever been told you weren't enough, comment below. I read every single one, and know this: you are enough. You always were. Subscribe, because next week I'm sharing another unbelievable story. A woman donated her kidney to save her sister's life, only to find out her husband was cheating with that same sister. What happened next will shock you. Remember what my father taught me: never judge people by how they dress or where they live. The quiet ones, the ordinary ones. Sometimes they're holding all the cards. I'm Ayesha. Stay strong, stay kind, and never ever let anyone make you feel small, because you never know. The person they're underestimating might own everything they think is theirs.